University of New York.
I'm pleased to welcome you to this special program, Women to Women on Welfare Reform. My name is Frances Deegan Horowitz, and I'm president of the Graduate School and University Center of the City University of New York. Among the most pressing issues our nation is facing now is how we ensure that every child in this country has the opportunity to develop into a productive and contributing citizen. How every adult in this country has the opportunity for gainful employment that sustains families and has meaningful access to health care. Unfortunately, our society has not yet achieved these opportunities for all of its citizens, making it important for there to be available a good safety net to help people over rough times, to protect the developmental opportunities for children, and to enable families to have sustaining incomes. Welfare systems are supposed to be designed to do these things. Yet there is now great dissatisfaction with what many perceive as the failure of our present welfare system. Thus the popular refrain, "We must end welfare as we know it." Behind this refrain are many assumptions: that welfare is bad for the economy, that welfare throws budgets out of balance, that welfare is bad for those who are on welfare, largely women, and largely women with children. Women and work and children are inseparable issues. We cannot talk about welfare without asking what is good for children, what contributes most to helping women to have productive lives. We know that commitment to children and commitment to work are problems even for the most affluent of our society. These problems are of equal or perhaps even greater gravity for the least affluent of our families and for women in our society. We know that caring for and educating our children are matters of grave importance for our society, and yet the race to end welfare as we know it seems to have generated a consensus that ignores the need for serious discussions of the implications of proposals for children and for those who will be affected. These are issues that must be scrutinized and subjected to serious public debate if what we're planning to do in welfare reform is going to make things really better. And this serious public debate must include the voices of those affected by welfare policies as well as the voices of experts. Here at the Graduate School and University Center of the City University of New York, we're committed to trying to bring together all the voices that have something of importance to say, voices that can engage the issue seriously and with compassion. It is for this reason that a number of the faculty of the Graduate School and University Center, in cooperation with the City University of New York TV, decided to initiate a symposium series that would bring together women whose voices have not always been heard talking together, researchers, advocates, and the women who are themselves involved in the welfare system, to discuss, to debate, to explore the issues and the options for improving welfare, for creating safety nets for those who need it, for safeguarding our children's futures, and in doing so, our own futures. It is our hope that this symposium series will be informative, that it will contribute to our ability as a society to give serious consideration to recommendations to improve our welfare system, recommendations that are fair, that are humane, and that will not so much end welfare as we know it, but make the welfare system a meaningful and constructive part of comprehensive social policies designed to foster the development of all our citizens.
Joining us today are CUNY faculty, experts on the subject of welfare. Mimi Abramovitz from the Hunter College School of Social Work, CUNY. Marilyn Gittell teaches political science at CUNY's Graduate School. Barbara Amelad, once on welfare, is a researcher at the Center for Worker Education at the City College CUNY. Frances Fox Piven teaches political science at CUNY's Graduate School. And Doris Correo Capello from the Lehman College CUNY Seek program. 5 women who have dedicated their professional lives to the advocacy of underrepresented women: Una Clark, a member of the City Council, 40th District in Brooklyn. Martha Davis, staff attorney of the Now Legal Defense and Education Fund. Eleanor Guggenheimer, president of the New York Women's Agenda. Nina Perales, associate counsel, Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund, and Vicki Golson, community organizer in North Harlem. Our third group is made up of women most directly affected by the existing welfare system and often the target of cruel and unfair charges. These women presently receive public assistance. They have children and are in college. Each turn to welfare for different reasons. Let's meet Doreen Harrigan, a student at Bronx Community College, CUNY, with a 3.9 grade point average. She has 2 children and receives public assistance. Zena Carica is a welfare recipient in New Jersey and a student at Middlesex Community College. Annette Sanchez attends Middlesex Community College and is on public assistance in New Jersey. Annette wants to be a lawyer. And Andrea Harris, a student at LaGuardia Community College, CUNY, currently on public assistance. Andrea hopes to become a social worker. Leading our discussion is Barbara Ehrenreich.
We're going to do something very unusual here today. We're going to have an in-depth discussion of welfare among women. This is unusual because so far most of the national debate over welfare reform has taken place among people who really have very limited direct experience of some of the issues. I'm talking about male policy pundits, people who have not probably experienced poverty, people who have not had the experience of being on public assistance, and people who probably have not raised children on their own. We have a very different kind of group here today. We have some researchers and faculty from the City University of New York. We have some women leaders and representatives of advocacy groups who have worked with welfare recipients. And most important of all, we have some women who are currently raising children on their own, who are on public assistance, and who happen, in our case, to be college students, full-time college students. Now, we all know the questions. There's a question about Clinton's proposal that he wants to end welfare as we know it. Should that be our goal? Is that a good idea? How to get there if it is? Then there's the question of what kind of emphasis there should be in welfare reform. Should the emphasis be on jobs? Or, as some people say, should the emphasis be on changing family structures? Or should the emphasis be on the psychology, perhaps, of people on welfare, on making them, quote, more responsible? Now, we all know the stereotypes, too. There are stereotypes of people who go on to welfare because they just don't like to work. There are stereotypes of women who have babies because it'll allow them to go on welfare. We know the stereotypes. We know the myths that go with welfare. Now we're going to try to get to some of the realities. And we're going to start by talking about what it's really like to be a welfare recipient and what leads people to go on to public assistance. And I'd like to start with you, Doreen, and ask if you could tell us, you had worked before, you had had a job, right, at Grand Union, and what happened with that? I mean, why wasn't that enough?
I didn't have adequate babysitting. My child kept getting sick, and therefore I was let go. When I went to get help to get on welfare, they gave me a whole bunch of problems. When I was working at Grand Union, it wasn't enough money because it was minimum wage. At the time, I believe that was $3.35 or something like that. I had to pay for child care. I had to get to and from work. I was also still in school, and I also had to pay rent, Con Ed, and all the other bills, and it just wasn't enough. So I went to welfare to get help. Let me just say that I did go to welfare while I was working to try to get supplemented so that I can have the extra money. Or I just asked them for child care help. They would not give it to me. Then after that, I went, you know, after I got kicked out of the job, let's say, fired, I went and applied for welfare. And it wasn't a very good experience.
So it's really a matter of the arithmetic. There you are making about $4 an hour. Right. You have child care, you have transportation, and it wasn't working out. Exactly. But you were trying in the job market.
And you can't move up.
How about you, Andrea? Do you want to talk about what led you to seek out public assistance?
I seeked out public assistance because of the fact that I needed help with medical expenses. And I was 18, I was turning 19, and I was coming off my mother's coverage from her union. And I was pregnant. And so I went to get some assistance for the medical expenses from the hospital. when I went, I couldn't get assistance for myself because of my age, and I was still under my mother's policy. So they gave me assistance for my daughter. They paid for her medical expenses, but my mother and I had to pay for my own expenses. I went to work after that because I had to pay for being in the hospital. Working with a small child, not having adequate child care, and small babies get sick. And some people, if they're watching your child with someone else's child and your child gets sick, you can't go to work because you can't bring your child there among their children. So I had to stop working. And when I would go to public assistance, they would sanction me because I had been working, and they would tell me that I owed back money because of the fact that I was receiving something for my daughter, but I wasn't receiving anything for myself. So they would sanction me. They would recoup money. So it's like, you know, it's not a good feeling to be going through this situation, and it's not a winning situation. You can't win with that.
Well, there's no incentive there to work at all if they're going to take money away when you actually do it.
And they're not helping me with child care or other career counseling or what have you. There are not no available programs to help me. They're saying go to work, but they're not giving me any incentive by helping me. I have to do it on my own. If I don't have motivation and determination within myself as a woman, then I would go nowhere.
You know, when you think about it, a full-time worker earning the minimum wage but working full-time brings home a wage that is only 2/3 of the federal poverty level. And that doesn't count child care expenses or medical expenses or any of that. The federal poverty level based on a minimum market basket of food, you don't make it. You're 2/3 of that.
What is 2/3 of that? What are the numbers?
Well,
Frances,
the number is a minimum wage worker working full-time earns about $8,000 a year in the United States, and the poverty level for a family of 3 is between $11,000 and $12,000. So there you are. Now, it used to be that a full-time worker out of the minimum wage was brought home enough money to be over the poverty level, 20% over the poverty level in the 1960s. So wages have gone down.
Right, and I think one of the most recent reports that told us that about 20% of the American workforce is already working full-time and not getting up to the poverty level. Annette, did you want to add anything about your experience and what led you, to originally seek public assistance?
Well, first of all, before I start speaking, I want to thank you for this opportunity to say my story and give my opinion, because as we all know, our voices are never heard. Basically, my problem was I had just finished graduating from Drake Secretarial College, and I did get a job. I was working in Newark Airport for Budget Rental Company, but at that time I got pregnant and I was having problems. I had a threatened abortion, and the doctors told me that I could lose the baby at any given time. And it's a 2-hour commute on bus going and coming back. And I would leave at 4 and I wouldn't get home till 11, 11:30 or 12. And
4 in the morning?
I would have to leave. I would take the 5 o'clock bus to get over there to be on time. And then 3 times I got stranded because the bus stopped running. And it was just, it was too much stress. So I quit it and I went on public assistance.
So that was just it. So a large part of it's jobs we're hearing child care. I just want to turn to Una Clark. As someone who has been looking at this on in a general way, what kind of benefits do people get on welfare in New York City, and what are we talking about in terms of money that is being offered to people?
You're talking about $360 for rent subsidy. You're talking about food stamps, and then they have to register in the Begin program. And then the child care support is not there. So in fact, you're talking about women who are in poverty and who are encouraged to remain in poverty because there's no incentive there for them, that if they're in training, they would continue to get some subsidy. The minute they start working, then they're kicked off, and so it becomes a revolving door for many women.
Also, I think in New York City, the total of all that is about $577 a month. That includes all the expenses, and with the rents in New York City and other big cities, that eats up most of the budget. But also I want to say, listening to the stories here, the experiences that we've just heard about are very much the same that most women have. Women on welfare, women not on welfare. How to manage family life and work, how to put the two together. And when you have less money, it's even harder because you have no way to get the extra services like childcare or pay for a taxi when you're late or having to travel late at night and feel safe and secure. So that it's, the experience of the women on welfare is really no different than any other working woman.
I think also one of the buzzwords that we hear in this debate is the dignity of work, and we can see that women are working, as we can see from the students here. They have attempted to work, and it's been difficult, but the kinds of jobs that are available to women are not dignified jobs, and yet we continue to hear this concept of the dignity of work, and women and people, poor people should want to work. But it becomes.
But
Doreen, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that when I got on welfare, I was what you was termed as a hidden homeless. I was homeless, but I wasn't exactly homeless. I was living with someone, but it wasn't mine. It wasn't in my name, so that's what they termed as a hidden homeless, being that I had a child. And I don't know about the $360 a month, but I was told 2 people were only allowed $252 a month for rent. And I'm still told that till this very day. If it's $360, they never told us, because I had found an apartment that was a little over $250, and they let me lose that apartment. What I mean by that, they didn't get the paperwork in on time, and about time I went back for the apartment, the landlord had rented it to someone else. Okay, and meaning I had my money. I had saved also working at Grand Union. So, you know, it's the stereotyping. When you go to a job, and if you're coming off of welfare, and you tell a job, oh, they say, how did you support yourself before, you know, for this interview? And you say, I'm on welfare, automatically you're treated worse and different on the job. You know, I'm not saying all jobs I haven't experienced. I've experienced a lot of jobs, but not a lot. And automatically it's like, oh, she's on welfare, she can take anything. We can talk to her any way we want. She'll do anything, she'll do all the overtime, you know. To me, it would seem like if you get a person that's on welfare, especially a single mother with a child, you will be a little more lenient. And I'm not saying lenient to the point where it affects the company, but a little more lenient. Well, maybe you know, Doreen shouldn't do overtime for 5 days a week because she has a child to go home to.
Well, I think that would apply to anybody, any parent with a small child, really, nothing to do with welfare.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that stereotyping, they automatically, and I've even had bosses tell me, well, what do you know? You've been on welfare all your life. And that just strips your self-esteem from you, you know.
I wanted to say something, too, that I think the stereotypes, of course, are couched in, and certainly my researchers have indicated, in a much broader historical context. And the historical context in this country goes back to racism and the kinds of ways that when people think of welfare out there in the communities across the country, they think of welfare as someone taking advantage of usually a black woman or a woman of color taking advantage of the system. And throughout the literature on black women, throughout the literature historically, there have been these kinds of stereotypes. So in spite of the reality, you know, the reality is very different, but the stereotypes are really bound up with the way people of color, and particularly women of color, grow up in this country.
Are you a New York City, New York State recipient? Or
yes, I am.
Zena, we haven't heard from you yet about how you started out, you know, how you first returned to public assistance and what was happening in your life.
I worked like summer jobs, and my mother, just like Adrian's story, she had me on her insurance policy. My mother's company, they went out of business and they didn't tell her. They never informed any of the workers. So she went to work one day and found closing signs all over the place. And during that time I had gotten pregnant and I had no other choice. I had girlfriends who lived around me who maybe a few years before I got on public assistance, they received public assistance and they kept moving on in their lives. I felt it as to, I looked at it towards, I looked at being on public assistance as an opportunity for me because we were like, our house was stricken with so much grief because of this loss of my mother's job, and unemployment was giving her a hard time. It was like I had no other choice.
So it was a crisis in your life.
So it was a real crisis.
In everybody's life when it came up. Ellie, you wanted to throw something in, I know.
Well, I started in the 1930s recognizing the fact that this country didn't have a child care system, that every woman with a child who had to work, well, women who even didn't have to work, should have been able to find that. We've known it for all these long years, and every other country on this planet, every other industrialized country on this planet now has a system of child care. I don't know how long we're going to continue to punish people in this country, but mostly to punish children as well as women, as well as mothers. It is absolutely outrageous that we continue not to have a complete system of child care services. We're killing children and we're killing women.
But as the debate goes on, one has to recognize that the money that goes into welfare is 1% of the national budget. When you think that the budget for the security or for the army or for the is so much more, and we did a bailout for $130 billion with the banks. I think to make it seem as though the country is going down because of welfare and welfare recipients is very unfair and very unnecessary. And I think again, when you talk about welfare, it seems to me that people couch it as though it is only people of color that are on welfare, when in fact 38% of all recipients are not people of color, they are white people. And they get the dignity of going to the bank and having their money sent to the bank, while if you're of color, you got to stand on a line and be humiliated. So some people are allowed to have their check go into a checking account, so when they go to the bank, they seem as though they are real bankers, and then others are humiliated. And I think whenever there is double standard,
wait, this is a policy? This is a policy that white people on welfare get their checks sent to the bank?
It's not necessarily a policy, but in many communities, the bank will have them do direct deposit to the bank, and if you are of color, they will not allow you to do direct deposit.
Well, that's pretty straightforward. Yes, yes, well, Martha.
Zena said something that I think is interesting, which is that she viewed going on AFDC as an opportunity to a way to keep her family together during a real crisis time. And I think one of the things that people have sort of mentioned when they talk about the need to increase the minimum wage or make work pay, I guess basically, is that women on welfare really do want to use it as a way of keeping a family together or bettering themselves, as these women are doing in college. One piece of information that I know is that in Georgia, when they initiated the job training program for welfare recipients, there were 19,000 women that were on the waiting list to try to get that kind of job training, because I think that because the benefits are so low that there are very few, if any, people that really want to stay on welfare. It's really a way to, something that people want to use as a safety net to get them through a hard time and hopefully to improve their lives.
I just want to come back to those benefits for a minute. Maybe you had something to say on this, Andre. How do you live on these amounts of money we're talking about? Doreen, you mentioned $250 or $252 a month allowance for rent. I don't know where you find apartments for that kind of rent. And I just want to know, and then the total amount that Mimi mentioned was about $570 a month, and I assume that's for 2 children, right?
No.
2 children and a mother. I want to hear a little bit, how do you get things together with that kind of money?
Taxpayers are under the assumption that we live like some luxury life. I get $312 a month for rent for 4 people. Nowhere in New York in '94 am I going to find an apartment for $312. I get a Section 8 subsidy. My rent is $900. Not just that, I get $153 for basic needs. If I didn't have the support system of my mother and religious organization, there's no way I would be living and could sit here and be as confident as I am and speak the way I do. But it's because of that strong support system, and that doesn't come from public assistance. They're not giving me money to live on and live comfortably. It just pays those bills and some of the bills. That doesn't mean TV expenses or having such things as toothpaste and toilet paper, because you're using that basic need money to try to pay your light and gas bill if it's over budgeted, or to have a telephone. I have children. I need a telephone in case of an emergency. Not to just talk on, but just to pay that monthly bill of, say, $15 if you don't never pick it up but for an emergency. So without the support system, I wouldn't be able to live comfortably. It's not all on the taxpayers' money. And my mother pays taxes. My grandparents have a business. They pay taxes. You understand what I'm saying? So it's
you
not.
You can't do it. You're just saying it's impossible.
It would be impossible.
Everybody agrees.
It would be impossible to live like that.
And
I live in New Jersey, and I have 3 children, and I get $488 a month. And even though I have Section 8, I mean, right now I'm going to college and I have to cough up $100 a month for babysitter, $41 to pay for transportation. I gotta pay my defaulted loan, which is $56, and that's not even including rent, light, the phone, and like my kids, they need sneakers. Just because they're on welfare doesn't mean they don't use sneakers, clothes, house products. You know what I'm saying? So every month, it's like one bill suffers. Like if my kids need sneakers this month, well, I won't pay the light, and then next month I gotta double up on the light. And then when I don't have diapers, I'll go down to the store and ask them to give me credit. You know, and it's like a cycle on and on and I'm like, I'm just so fed up of everybody always attacking women, you know, on welfare. You know, I have 3 kids, and my man walked out. That's not my fault, you know what I'm saying? And I'm trying, you know, I'm trying to raise them the proper way so they could be responsible, so they don't have to go and get somebody pregnant or end up on welfare or do drugs, you know. And that's a hard job, raising 3 little kids. They're 4, 3, and 2, and I'm a full-time student. But nobody gives me credit for that. Nobody says, "Oh, Nick, you know, that's good that you're not on drugs, or you're not out there doing alcohol. That you're out there trying to do the best as possible." Everybody's always attacking women on welfare. I don't hear nobody attacking the government for giving the military $1 billion to make a missile. One missile kills the whole country. You know, why do we need so many missiles? You know, I don't hear them attacking them $500. I just heard $600 that they get paid for a toilet seat. $600 pays rent. You know what I'm saying? I don't hear that. I don't hear, why do government officials have to be in limos? Why they have to go to a dinner in a restaurant and pay $350? They'll go down the ShopRite and you know, $350. You know, I think that's a grocery for a month and a half. You know, but they don't see that. You know, look at the people in jail. Why they have to have cable? They're criminals. You know what I'm saying? Why they gotta have cable? Why they have? I mean, I know they're human beings and everything, but they don't need. I don't have cable. They don't need no cable. You know, taxpayers' money are going on that too. I mean, every single day there's always some kind of source that's being cut down, like education or support for this and everything. Everybody's suffering, and I'm tired of I'm not the scapegoat. This is not my problem. I'm tired of the government attacking me for all the problems. If they knew how to use their money right, that we wouldn't be in this situation. Because it's sad for the United States to be one of the richest countries, and how many billions of people are on welfare? How many billions of people don't have jobs? You know, the unemployed. I mean, it's ridiculous for them to even attack us. We're trying to do right, you know, by raising our children and going to school. I can't even go to school. They won't even acknowledge college. You know, it's ridiculous.
I have a hard time understanding, and I was a single mother once myself, is how do you pull it all together when you have children and you're going to college also? All right, Zena, take it away. How do you know, it's too much to juggle.
Adrian was talking about using resources. I live in a housing facility called Amandala Crossing. It's in Edison, New Jersey. And I'm real grateful to be there, because if I wasn't, I don't really know where I would be at. I really don't know. I can honestly say that. And pulling things all together is hard. It's hard. I walk like a quarter of a mile to school every day to take my son to a daycare that Catholic Charity helps fund for him to go. And my daughter, she gets bused to school. And like Annette was saying, sometimes bills have to suffer, or I myself would go without just to make sure my children have.
So you're getting the children off to daycare and school first, then you have to get to school. I'm emphasizing this because one of the sort of conservative male comments about welfare recipients is that they're, quote, too lazy to know how to wind an alarm clock. And so I'm just throwing it at you. Doreen, you want to say something to this?
Yes, I take my children from the Bronx to Manhattan every morning. If my oldest daughter doesn't have school that day. Let's just say it's a holiday for them, and it's not a holiday for me at college. And I can't miss class, okay, because you know, then your welfare monies are cut by each day that you miss. So I have to take my daughter all the way downtown to Manhattan, both of my children. This is like roughly about 6 o'clock in the morning, meaning that I'm up at 5 to feed them a nutritious breakfast, you know, because I don't want them to feel run down like I feel. And then I'm back uptown in the Bronx to school. I'm there all day, and then I have to go back down there, pick them up after I get out of school, like 5 o'clock in the evening. So I'm getting home roughly about 7, 8 o'clock at night, cooking a late dinner, getting them ready for bed. Not to mention that these children need quality time. All right, they don't, my daughter, she's great now that I'm going to college. I see more respect, not as much talking, but she doesn't understand why mommy has to be gone so much. And I have to constantly tell her, baby, I'm doing this for us. I want a better life for us. I want to get out of the Bronx. And that's truly my dream. I just buried a nephew, 11 years old, hit and run from 161st Street in the Bronx. And that's the last thing I want to happen to my children. Do you know how I worry about my 9-year-old going to school early in the morning by herself because I have to be at school? You know, how I worry about her coming home while I'm sitting in the class. Professors don't want to hear that. They don't understand it, okay? And I can identify with their status, the way they stand. They don't want to hear that you have children and you're sorry you're late and you couldn't get, and it's very hard. The whole cycle is very degrading. One of my projects, one of the things I plan to do is help women with self-confidence and self-esteem, because it definitely strips you. It takes away, it takes something from you and it makes you feel like, oh my God, how I'm gonna do this. And it's hard to juggle. Like Andrea said, without outside resources, there's no way. And if you tell a welfare that you got $5 from your mother to get to school, they will recoup you and cut your benefits, and that's the rough thing.
Andrea.
The point that I would like to make is that you asked, how do I go on? I go on because there's no other way. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole right now. The lower is in the shelter, and I'm not going there because I didn't come from that, okay? I'm the second person in my family to be on public assistance. My aunt was, this was in another state. But I know it's no other way. I don't want my children to look on TV or look in a magazine for a role model. They have a role model here. They may not can see this now, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I'm also doing it for myself because I know that it's better for me. And it's a long road, but life is like that for anybody, not just because I'm on public assistance. I know what statistics say in those categories about they don't want to go to, I'm not that. I live in my world. Nobody here will ever know about my world and how it is because I'm the one who live in it. And I didn't expect nobody to understand that. Some consideration, yes. But this is how it is. I've made it like this, and I'm living with it, and I've accepted it. And that's it's a lot to accept the way it is and to go on because there is better. So I get up every morning and I keep that insigniative. I'm self-motivated and I'm self-determination. I'm gonna do it because there's nobody else gonna do it for me. Public assistance is not. I had a defaulted loan. I got out for 12 years. I was at home. I could have had a bachelor's degree by now if I had known that I could have went back to school by making payments, but I didn't know. So I stayed at home, and now I'm back out into the mainstream and think, I'm not gonna stop. Nothing can stop me because I am determined to get that for myself because that's the only way. There's no other way.
Not to mention one more thing, that your children, these stereotypes reach your children. You hear the children in the schoolyards talking about, oh, your mommy's on welfare. On TV, they have stereotyped us so much. So my daughter, God bless her, actually tells me, Mom, please don't let anybody know you have food stamps. Don't say you're on. But she can't help it. She's only 9.
So that's undermining the family.
Exactly,
right there.
And it's in the children, and it does, like Andrea says, take determination. Who else is going to do it? If the men are not there for whatever reason. Not all men have walked out. Some men have passed, and they never worked, so there was no benefits to draw on. And you know, whatever reason, I've always believed in mama's baby, papa's maybe. We have to raise these children. These are our children, and you do what you have to do to survive.
Yeah, I want to point out just one thing because we are changing some stereotypes right here. A lot of people say, well, a lot of middle class women have jobs and they take care of it. You know, they get child care, they manage and everything without any trouble.
They don't.
Okay, Ellie, because one thing I'm hearing from Doreen and Andrea is you're talking about situations where you're also frightened to have your children out by themselves. You know, it's not like we're talking about suburban park areas. Yes,
there's an illusion that any mother raising a child who happens to have money has got it all made beautifully, and she's got good child care, and when she gets really rich, she gets a nanny that lives at home. I can tell you, because I've been in the child care field most of my life, that good child care, quality child care that educates your child, that ensures health, that ensures caring, simply is a miracle when it exists in this country. It is not available. It's not available at any level. And women who are raising their children alone, whether they're on welfare or whether they have jobs as good. Well, Kimba has a husband, but she had, may I tell you, she had the wrong people taking care of her children.
That's right.
What bothered me more than the taxes was where did she find the people to take care of her children? We are not only hurting you, but we're hurting a next generation. And we have no way of ensuring that we're not going to put, you said something about people in jail, go out and ask them about their childhoods, the ones at Rikers Island in prison. And every one of them have been through experiences that were neglect in early childhood. We've got to wake up in this
But even that,
Zena, you want to throw something in here?
Oh yeah, I was just wanting to say something to Andre about the people that are in shelters. These people that are in shelters, you may think of them as being low as they come, but that's not true.
That wasn't my point. My point was that once I lose my apartment and I go in the shelter system, I'm lower on the totem pole than I am now because I have to start all the way. So I have to be firm and I have to hold the place where I'm at. I have a roof over my head. I'm very thankful to God, but it also has to do with me juggling those bills and the responsibilities with the little bit of finance and resources that I have. I don't put people down for being in the shelter because I'm here today, but I don't know where I may be tomorrow morning. The point I'm making is once I lose sight and don't keep the determination that I have, I'm going to end up there because that's what happens. I can give you stories back to
Zena,
back.
you had the experience of being homeless, didn't you?
Yes.
And you had to give up your children for a while?
Yes.
Do you want to say anything about that?
I had the experience of being homeless where I lost an apartment because I wasn't on public assistance. I could no longer receive it because I was going to school. And I had to let my children stay with my sister for 2.5 years just about.
Oh.
And I moved into Edison. I moved out of one county into another county just so I can receive the help that I could get by using resources that were available to me. I've met some pretty damn good teachers where I'm at.
So you became homeless because you didn't have anything like public assistance helping you at that point.
I didn't have anything.
I want to, Vicki, you wanted to say something earlier. I want to know if these the stories we're hearing now fit with the experience of people you work with as a community activist.
Absolutely. I mean, if I can take it succinctly, because I'm emotionally involved in this. You know, one of my prime concerns is the degradation of women, you know, the psyche. And this is for all women, because what begins to happen is, irrespective of the group that we take, and we put them and magnify their experiences and misinform other women, therefore we attempt to divide. You know, there's an opportunity here that displays really the cohesion that women have, the freedom that women have maintained, you know, to be able to demonstrate, you know, their passion and their love and their determination, be it for their young, be it for their communities. And what we do is we turn that around and we shortcut it with the 6 o'clock news. You know, so now we have young people who are graduating from the universities and the Ivy League, you know, schools of America, who know nothing about women of color other than the 6 o'clock news. And that's frightening. So when these little sisters go to receive health care services, they are dealing with someone who only knows about their situation from the 6 o'clock news. When there's a young teacher who's just come out of a higher school of education and is now teaching their children, her only point of reference with their children is the 6 o'clock news. And that's perpetuated. And that type of dogma, that type of psychological, you know, constipation kills the spirit. And I would just like to take a second and say, you're strong and stay strong because you're still young. Believe me, there's a lot of other stuff you're going to come in contact with. If you think welfare is rocking your world, they got some other stuff for you. You know, but I just wanted to say that the whole system that we have allowed through our silence, many of us have struggled for years and years, of systematic racism. It is women who are going to have to take the initiative to call it to a halt, because the boys have lost it. You know, anytime I can turn on the TV and I see a gentleman who's, I mean, he's PhD, MD, EED, did it, And he's making a statement about welfare. Women have to work their way off of welfare. And he is so stupid to me. But there is no chance, other than shows like this, opportunities like this, to be able to balance off that information. And it truly is going to have to become an aim or priority for women. Because if we don't, we allow the misinformation to further impede our development as a very intricate part of the society. You cannot have a community without women. You cannot bring life forward without women, and of course, men are included in that operation. But it is the passion and the responsibility of women to be able to take each generation forward. So systematic racism has to end. Systematically taking women and their families out of the parenting process. I think more women need to come out of the workforce if we're going to compare the moral fiber and the standards we had of the kids that came up from the 50s and the 60s compared to what we have done when all of us ran back into the workforce because of economics. We've got to be very careful, and I think women need to take the lead in this. You need to take the boys in the corner in the bathroom, not put them under punishment. Don't let them talk on television. Don't do their laundry. Don't do anything else for them either, if that's what it takes. I'm sorry.
But then, you think,
just building on what you said, one of the images of welfare is that it breaks families up. It's one of the stereotypes. But what I've been hearing here today is that welfare is the glue that helps people keep their families together. And I think that's very important for everybody to realize that. But the stories we've heard, in each case, welfare has allowed a woman to stay with her children and to provide better care for them than if that public assistance wasn't available. So it's really quite ironical that the image of welfare is that it breaks family up. We know there are other pieces to that story about it. That welfare doesn't allow, for example, two-parent families to live together very often, but it really does help single mothers keep their families together.
I would pose that quite differently. I think we have to be very careful. I think it is I think it's a safety net. I was on welfare for 7 years. It's a safety net. It provides the resources. But I hear the testimony saying it takes something else to hold those families together. It takes something that welfare cannot ever give. And that is the other kinds of resources that women are pulling together for themselves, and also the connection with other members of the community. Because there are these women represent those women who are successfully moving through the welfare system. That's not the total picture. There are lots of women who are in crisis and unable to function, sometimes addiction, sometimes emotional depression, and which welfare has not helped them at all. And which welfare comes in often to take away their children. So I think we have to be careful of couching it because the successes are here without recognizing.
Well, it also gets, there's a lot of mythology about because of the consequences of reporting what's actually happening. And then research I've done in interviewing women on welfare in different cities around the country, most of them are working 2 jobs, taking care of their kids, going to school, involved in other family matters, but you can't make that public because you might be sanctioned, as you put it, if you say that. In fact, I would say most of those people that I've met over the years are doing twice as much as other people who are going to college or involved with their families. And I think, just to add to what Barbara said, each of you has mentioned the importance of your family. And the other mythology about family being unimportant or the distortion of the family seems to me each of you contradicts that myth about single parents, that you do have family and it's your families and your community probably that are an important factor in all this.
Marilyn, the people who are receiving public assistance and also working, that's called cheating, right?
Yeah, that's called surviving.
Well, okay, I just wanted to
because in many of these places.
No, but what we were really saying is a real hypocrisy here, because you can't live on the benefits alone. You can't tell them that you're working or they take away money. So we're talking about people who are working, really, or going to school in your case, isn't it? You want to?
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment. Like, I mean, it just got to a point where I really don't care what people think of me, you know, because I feel I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to be there for my children and to keep my dreams alive, because I want to become a lawyer to help women and children in domestic violence situation, because I was a victim myself, and to help children that have been molested, you know, so they could have a voice. And it just got into a point that no matter, we could sit here and we could tell you our stories, and there's gonna be there's a lot of ignorance out there, and people don't want to hear it. You know, they don't care, or they just take half of the information. So I just got into a point where you're gonna criticize me regardless. Whether, look at Oprah, she makes too much money. People say, you know, people criticize us for being poor. So it just got into a point where I don't care what you really think. I'm gonna do whatever I have to do so I could go to college and become a lawyer, and I could be the best mother that I could be there for my kids regardless. And I mean, and you could go on and put me down, up and down, and I really don't care, because you're not there to live where I live. You're not there to, I mean, yeah, taxes, money, but what makes so sure that your taxes money are going, I mean, your taxes money could go on the military, you know, other people's taxes, you know, so it just got into a point where, I mean, because I've been, for every little attempt that I have made to succeed, I've gotten thrown down to another world, you know, and it just got into a point where I don't even bother anymore. I just do whatever I have to do. And you know, like, look, I'm in college right now. I just lost my babysitter again, and I have 4 weeks to go, and I have no babysitter, and I have 3 kids. And I mean, I've been depressed about that, because now what am I going to do? And I have to pay for it out of my own pocket, because REACH does not want to accept. REACH is a program in New Jersey that gives you job training, but they won't let you go to college. They don't accept that, you know. And I asked them, you know, if they could at least pay for paralegal or I get financial. And they told me no. They gave me a list. Here, you could be a cook, a janitor. I cook every day, 3 meals a day for my kids. You know what I'm saying? You could be a janitor. I mean, I'm not knocking that down, but I mean, if you choose to do that, then that's fine. But that's not my job.
That's not going to get you out.
So yeah, they told me, well, then go on your own. So then I said, well, fine, I'm going on my own. It's hard. So then welfare comes and tells me, well, once you get your Pell Grant, you got to let us know. So if I'm on my own, well, then leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, if I get financial aid, they want to take whatever money's left over. Well, how am I supposed to pay for babysitter? How am I supposed to pay? So it just got into a point where I really just don't care. I'm going to do whatever I have to do.
Let me ask a hard
to go
question
on.
here, because I think a lot of women would, of any kind of, you know, experience, would identify with problems with childcare. I mean, so many women have had that problem, even married women, whatever. A lot of women will identify with the problems of juggling the children and the other responsibilities, trying to, you know, make a living and everything. But then a lot of people are going to say, well, why'd you have the children in the first place? Did you have the children to, you know, because this is a widespread perception. I'd like to hear your comments. Was it because there was welfare was out there, and you could say, all right.
No, see, I had my children because I chose to have my children, because they're a part of me. They were inside. I didn't do it for $64. Honestly, I didn't, you know, because if you look at it, people that work and they get that extra credit income, you get $2,000. So what is the chances of a person on welfare having a baby for $64 due to a person that's working and gets $2,000 back? There's more of a chance of a person who gets $2,000.
Wait, if you're on welfare, it's $64 a month per child?
Not anymore. Oh, that's a new policy. That in New Jersey, that's a new policy. And that's another point I want to make. That's called the Bryant Bill. They put that part in effect as soon as it came out. But there's a good part that they're trying to put the colleges to be like a part of the REACH program. That still hasn't gone in effect, and they're gonna wait another year. And I mean, why can't they put that in? I mean, that's more important than denying a person a baby $64. You know.
I just wanted to ask Nina. You were familiar with this Bryant Bill. This is an attempt to tell me what this is about. This is an attempt to stop people on welfare from having children.
Well, that's what they say it is. The legislature in New Jersey passed a law that went into effect last October that said that if you have a baby while you're on welfare, while you conceive a baby while you're on welfare, you will not get any more money in your welfare check when that baby is born. And the legislature passed this bill without knowing anything about how women on welfare in New Jersey have babies. And it was after the Puerto Rican Legal Defense Fund and the now Legal Defense Fund where Martha works and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund brought a civil rights challenge to this law that it was revealed that women who receive welfare in New Jersey have very low rates of having babies while they're on welfare. Very, very low rates, lower than would be expected even from the accidental pregnancy rate. The truth about women on welfare in New Jersey is that women do not want to have babies and for the most part don't have babies while they're on welfare. But the public perception that fed the passage of this law was that there are lazy women in New Jersey who want to have babies for the money, which in New Jersey is $64, which doesn't even cover the diapers.
And they'd have
to pay me more than $64 a month for the child.
It's really one of the issues that I think and particularly African American women and Latinas in this country are under public scrutiny. When you are poor and you are black and female, your choices around maternity, your choices around sexuality, your choices around marriage are viewed by others as part of what they presume to have some input. Even in asking the question, it's offensive. Because that is an invasion of my private decisions, my personal decisions. And see, once you're off welfare, no one asks you that question in that way again, without feeling some self-consciousness. When I was on welfare, every month, every time I went down for certification, you have to report on who, how, when you had babies. I had to get, the last time I was on, I had to find landlords and others who verified that I was living with just me and my children. Once I got my first paycheck and I was off welfare, that no longer becomes a question that anyone has a right to ask me. That's my private, personal decisions.
There's a worldwide trend.
Yeah, and I'm saying that this is one of the issues here, that when that question is raised, people presume that they have a right to ask.
Francis, no, there is a worldwide trend. More and more women are having babies out of wedlock. It's happening across the globe, and people are naturally upset because social patterns, family patterns are changing. But politicians and a lot of the press are encouraging people to take that anxiety and direct it against women on welfare. In fact, the great majority of out-of-wedlock births are, of course, not to women on welfare. The average woman on welfare has 1.9 children, less than 2 children. It's been going down steadily over the years. And it's absolutely clear that women don't have babies in order to collect welfare, because in states that pay more, women on welfare have smaller families, fewer children, and states that pay less, they have more children. So all of the evidence is in the opposite direction, but what's going on is that this kind of social anxiety about the fact that family forms are changing is being dumped on welfare recipients.
But this is not new. This is a historic pattern in terms of just
pattern. Yeah. And what becomes even worse now, as we go into the electronic frenzy, is that it is magnified. So misinformation is now becomes something large as the blimp, whereas it would have been just conversation before. It is to someone's basic interest to have you to sit at home and feel secure because you are at home and you are watching or witnessing this situation. You can take a passive position and you can feel like you're doing something because now you are angry because someone that I am showing you is abusing a privilege. Someone that I am showing you is also becoming the barometer that you move away from. So to identify women of color in terms of to even have the nerve to ask in their business, you know, how did you do this? Why are you still having children? Da, da, da. No one has asked that of any of the young ladies operating out of the Beverly Hills circuit, where it is rich and it is nouveau and it is in vogue to have children out of wedlock. And we have to be very clear as women about what is consistent and what is inconsistent. And we have to be very clear in terms of our young to not take on additional emotional baggage that is unnecessary for them to be able to succeed, to be happy, to be inquisitive, but most important, to be young.
Doreen, you've been waiting.
I just want to make 2 points. My first point is, like she said, there's people, women, that have babies and don't want the fathers. I mean, these are women with money that felt, hey, my daughter tells me every day, you know, Ma, I want to have a baby, but I don't want to get married. I don't want the daddy. And at first I used to get offended. And I was like, well, what do you mean? You know, because my traditions were, believe it or not, you're supposed to get married and have your children. She says, well, you know, Ma, I'm going to be rich and I'm going to have all my money and I'm going to be like the greatest lawyer in the world. And she said, why? What do I need him for? I just want to have the baby. So, Ma, can I have the baby without the father? So I had to explain to her about artificial insemination. And there's women, no, but there's women that feel like this really in the world. They want to have babies, and it may be fathers, I don't know how science is going to make this, but there may be fathers that want to have children without the mothers. You know, it works both ways. And my second point I wanted to bring up
is so that everyone would know I'm in the REACH program. The REACH program is a program for AFDC people. I won't say just mothers, because there are some guys in there that's taking care of children without a mother. And it provides counseling, it provides the child care money sometimes, and car fare for us to go to college. And I just wanted to clarify that the REACH for New York City under the city university is different from the REACH in New Jersey. So, you know, that everyone would know that, because for 4 years I was trying to go to college and it was very hard. And I get on my knees sometimes and thank God for REACH, because without REACH, I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the information. I did not know that I can go to college with a defaulted student loan. Okay, I did not know anything about the CUNY assessments test, that I had to pass it, you know, and without them I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I'm on the dean's list and I feel very good about it, thanks to REACH. And I just wanted to clarify that the REACH in New York City allows you to go to college.
Marilyn, you know a lot about women who are in public assistance going to college. What's happening? Is this a trend? Are women likely to be successful? I mean, we have some successful people finding all these things here.
Well,
now.
there are a lot of women on welfare who go to college, who choose to go to college, and who could blame them? I mean, our whole society is based on the assumption that going to college does a lot of things for you. It gets you a better job. And we have statistical evidence to that effect. The more credits you take in college, the more money you earn. Sometimes we worry about that when we have no jobs out there, but in fact, as compared to people who don't go to college, people do very well. And so why wouldn't anybody make the choice to do that? And at least 1/3 of the women around the country have high school degrees or GEDs, and half the women in New York City have high school diplomas or GEDs. So more than half the women in New York City are really eligible for college in a very immediate sense. And the research I've done in looking at this, and believe me, it's very difficult, because in the earlier periods, women did not report that they were in college, because just as I don't think this group had to face that problem, but when they went to the welfare office and if they were to mention that they went to college, they were taken off welfare. You could not go to college and be on welfare, so everybody just kept it to themselves. So I said to you before, in the early period of my research, when I interviewed people, they would tell me they didn't report this to their caseworker because they were not permitted to go to college. They're very successful. What's important is when they graduate from college, their jobs are more stable. Especially if they're non-sex stereotyped careers. That is, a lot of people go to college and become nurses. And I mean, while that's a job that has flexible hours and people tend to think of it, there's not very good career counseling, but where there is, women become draftsmen or draftspeople, engineers, jobs that are not architects, they do exceedingly well. So
we just have a minute left, so I'm going to ask those of us here who are our real experts, who are on public assistance now, just in one sentence, what would be the biggest priority for you if you were on Clinton's welfare reform task force? Annette, one sentence.
Not to reform welfare, to reform the government and the people working for welfare.
All right. There's one.
I would like to say to help provide child care, to help with the situation with the defaulted loans, and for medical, because that's what's needed, because I can finish college, but what if my job don't offer medical? I'm going to need that.
System of medical
it's very important.
Insurance for everybody. Okay, Zena?
I just wanted to say something real fast. When you said college offers a lot, before I answer your question, it helps my self-esteem so much that it's unbelievable. And when my self-esteem is lifted, I have the ability to do just about anything. To answer your question,
well, we really have run out of time now, but I think we've made some real progress. We've cut away a lot of stereotypes, and I hope we've laid the groundwork for some serious discussion of welfare reform.